I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
And I'm Ginger Conlon.
But wait a minute. Are we the CRM players? We can't be until... Okay. Now, we are the CRM players. Had to get our corporate imagery up.
That's right. There's a narrative in there somewhere.
Well, Alan, can you point it out to us?
we need you, man.
Anyway, it is another Thursday, Blur's Day, whatever it is. I don't know. I've really lost count of how long we've been doing this at this point. Can you remember? Or
yeah, no, I know it exactly. That much.
Okay, are you going to tell us?
No, I did. I told you already.
How long is it? No, just kidding. Anyway, yes,
so long
that, but it's not so long until.
Wait. Who was the one? Was that was Don Adams, right? In Maxwell Smart.
Missed by that much.
Yeah, right. And it's so long that
I don't know.
I just remember he did a lot of those.
But did he do a lot of these? Good day. Is that how? Good day?
Come on. I mean, you haven't been in New Zealand and you were never in Australia, and you haven't been in New Zealand for what? 2 years?
Well, I've never been there, so yeah.
No, but he has. He lived there.
Don't they call them Kiwis or something like that?
Yeah. Thomas is definitely not a Kiwi anymore.
But I like this one. Salute my friends. So are you saluting us right now?
Is that like military or right?
It's always good to see Sven. Always good to have him.
It's
always good to have anybody, actually, because I still get amazed that people actually watch us. So, it's one of those things.
Don't worry. Someday we'll find out that was an illusion.
But what's not an illusion is we are here. And, there's a week to go before, the big event. At least that's what we think it is. The big event.
Yeah. So how are we doing with that, Brent?
It's funny you should ask that, Paul. I just got this notification. Let's see if I can pop this up. I just got this notification from LinkedIn that says that we're a week away from the CRM Playaz Executive Roundtable. And check this out.
Okay.
Wow.
547 people already. Actually, that was when it was 39 seconds ago. That was more like an hour ago. So I think we're actually over 550 at this point. But
no,
550.
I like the way they break it down, though. 546 and Jesus Hoyos.
Yeah, I know. Well, right. They know Jesus is a buddy of ours and is a really cool person, and he deserves a little shine on his own. You have to be a part of the crowd.
See, what I think really is we can count him then as 100 separate. He's like 100 people. That's why they're saying Jesus Hoyos is 100 people, and then 546 others.
But you know what? That's kind of cool that we didn't put that page out there. It was like Saturday night, wasn't it? We were just kind of sitting around saying, hey, maybe we ought to put something out here to let people know we're doing this event.
Well, you came up with the idea of making an event, and then we did. And I remember I was a little reluctant because I was trying to figure out why, but I see it now. It makes a complete sense to have an event. And now it's fascinating. And, of course, we've been making sure that as many people as we can, and we hope other people will do the same, share it with your network, start talking to other people about the event. A lot of people are really, really interested in this and are treating it like a big, big deal, which is fascinating.
Maybe we should say for the folks who don't know what we're talking about, this is what we're talking about.
No, say tough luck and don't show them anything. It's your
all
loss.
Right. Yeah. It's a little too late. I spilled the beans, but no. Anyway, this is our first CRM Playaz Executive Round. It sounds really good. I mean,
it does. Looks really good too, actually.
I just hope it actually is good, and if it isn't, it's all on us. Everybody else on here is top notch. But no, this is something that we didn't know if we were going to be able to pull off. Quite honestly, and we were like, we could give it a shot and see if we could get we call them. Well, they're kind of called the Big Five of the CRM industry based on market share, and I have a special name for them. I got to put that hashtag out there, Amos. And Amos. And if Alan from Freshworks can do something special over at Freshworks, then they could be famous. Yeah, that's probably a little way. Yeah, we're probably a little ways away from that, so we'll just stick with Amos. But no, we're excited to have each of these people. They're executives at the leading CRM industry firms, so it's great to have them all join us. And it's just not them, right? You want to fill them in about this is the first start, the 75-minute roundtable, but the fun doesn't stop there.
Wait, can I just interject before Paul gives details? I told Brent this. This is like brings back memories, because just switch out Adobe and Microsoft for PeopleSoft and Siebel, and this is the event I hosted just about 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it was the VPs of marketing for all of those companies. And I took them out to dinner the night before to get to know everybody. And I was expecting it to be kind of awkward because they were all competing. No, except for the guy from SAP who had just moved from Germany. They all knew each other. And they had all worked at Oracle together. And it was like a reunion night. And it was really fun. And here we are with, 3 of the same 5 different people, but 20 years ahead now.
Well, I think Alyssa and Bill were probably only like 12 when you did that. Right, the others I know are a little bit more older, but I know this is, we're dealing with Bob Stutz, who you'll see shortly, president of CX at SAP, and Bill Patterson, EVP of CRM applications at Salesforce, and Rob Tarkov, who is EVP and GM of Oracle CX, and Alyssa Taylor, who's the GM and I think the GM of
corporate vice president, right?
And CVP. I was trying to remember which was the acronym or the letter in front of the VP part. CVP and GM of Microsoft Dynamics and Business Apps, and Suresh Vital, who is the VP of Product for Adobe Experience Cloud. And it's all the heavy hitters, really, or many of the heavy hitters in those units. And they're really, and the thing is, they all know each other pretty much too. At least 3 of them were at Microsoft. I think possibly all at once. I'm not sure. I know Bill and Bob were obviously at Microsoft together. And I think Alyssa was probably there around the time that they were, by the time maybe Bill was exiting. And I don't know, Rob knows them just from history, right? I mean, it's just a longtime industry veteran. And then Suresh used to be a Forrester analyst, so he knew them as an analyst back in his past. So it's like probably have that same kind of collegial group, although we can't take them out to dinner. We can try. I guess we could try. We could try.
Yeah, well, you could send them. You could use Goldbelly to send them dinner.
Ooh,
we actually have a kind of an example of what you could do, because we just got done. I mean, literally, we were on an analyst call for Oracle, and it was really good. We had to leave early, but one of the things that they did do was they provided us with these libations here. I mean, so maybe, well, I don't know. I'm not a wino. That didn't come out right. I'm not a wine aficionado, but I might try this. But I definitely tried, as you can see, I'll move it here. The chocolate, no, it says the Pinot Noir chocolate cherries. There it is. You see it? There it is. There it is.
Nice.
Yeah. So maybe we could send them those cronuts that we have left over.
There you go.
Don't you think they're kind of stale by now?
They won't.
But just warm them up and they'll be fine.
There it is.
So, all right. 2 comments about the audience. First of all, it wasn't 666. So what does that say? and second, you have to put up Sven's comment about the audience, which is he posted at 3:04. If you scroll up.
3:04. Oh, okay. Wow. Well, yeah, man, there's so many going on here. I missed all this stuff. Where's the one about the audio?
He actually has two of them.
Oh, there's two. Okay, there's one there. And to follow that up, there's can't leave out Thomas. He's rolling on the floor laughing at the chat. There it is. Yes. So yeah, we're all there. Yeah, we'll take
not
those.
Chat.
Two.
No, that's not. Those are not chat bots. Those are blab bots.
Oh, blab.
Those are blab bots. Right. Those guys don't chat. Yeah, and right. Goldbelly is a great. That's how we basically how we get food for our Super Bowl parties from Goldbelly. I love that place.
Oh, I see what Sven was saying. He says, looks like you have a new player in residence, and as often as Bob joins you. Hey, whenever Buffalo Bob wants to come on, he's more than welcome to come on. Except for I'm kind of like, this would have been like a good week for him not to come on. We'll talk about that. I'm sure he'll make note of why I'm saying that. But
yeah, he might run a minute or two late since I sent him the wrong link. Just so you know.
Well, okay. Well, that's okay. We got filler time because not only are we doing the 75-minute roundtable conversation, and we actually got some good input from the happy hour folks yesterday. We spent like that whole happy hour talking about potential things that we could ask, the roundtable. Some of that is definitely going to work its way into it. So that's 75 minutes. We're still figuring out exactly what we're going to ask them. We'll see. Oh, Alan. Okay. Well, moving right along, Alan. Work on that corporate narrative for us, Alan. That's all I can say. But right after we are done with the roundtable, the fun doesn't really stop. It's matter of fact, we have this additional piece. Like it would actually be helpful if I showed it to people. So yes, we do have our players in residence. They will have a special role in this process. There they are. Of course, Ginger is with us because it is the first Thursday of the month. I'm glad somebody reminds me of this because quite honestly, I forget, what Thursday is what at this point. It's just Thursday, Blur's Day, whatever you want to call it. But yes, they will be in the house providing commentary, asking some questions. Ginger, what do you want to get out of this roundtable experience?
It'd just be interesting to see the different views of the marketplace, but also what the commonalities are in terms of what they're all thinking, what they're all looking to accomplish. And I know a couple of people during the happy hour yesterday were interested to hear what their customers are asking for. So that would be interesting too, because, obviously a lot of you need to tell customers what they need that they don't realize yet that would help them, but also you need to be customer led to an extent so that you're meeting what they do know they need. So it'll just be interesting to see those different things and how they come together.
I think so too. And I got to pop up what Bob says here. Alan, he wants to make sure that we include Alan Berkson's great question. I think it was a great question because we're all still trying to figure out how exactly that butt fumble did work out. And maybe we can ask Ginger. That's probably one of those things, since you're a Jets fan, a fellow Jets fan too. Maybe something we could ask the five, a little levity involved. We could all levity and Jets, they kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, so we could do that.
Yeah. It's all part of being a New Yorker. If you're a fan of any team that ends in ETS, you're just tortured. That's just how it is.
Good thing you covered your bases there on that particular kind of New Yorker. Right.
Well, we know how the Yankees did yesterday, so that's a whole nother story, which is a good story.
Oh, don't worry. That will be talked about tomorrow. Don't worry.
Yeah. I'm not worried at all about that.
No, nothing to worry about on that one. There will definitely be talking about. Kept me up late, though. I'll tell you that.
Is there any other teams like I know the Mets and Jets? Are there any other New York teams that do that, or is it just those two? Just want to make.
You mean like the Rangers and the Knicks?
Yeah, if They don't end in ETS, but the Knicks. Wow. Okay, we better stop.
Yeah, that's tomorrow.
Yeah, we better stop. So, but we do want to just make a mention before, because I see our guest is in the green room, sipping on a little water, probably getting ready to roast me when he first comes on. But we'll get to that in a second.
He's eating a brookie.
He's eating a brookie, whatever, cookie brookies. He's going to be eating ram crow at some point, or I guess I am. But anyway, so, and we are not stopping after the 75 minutes. We do have, just look at these faces. Oh, it would be helpful if you actually could see the faces that I was telling you to look at. So look at it. This is a crew of not only are they great analysts and industry experts and thought leaders and influencers and whatever else you could call them, but they're also our buddies, and we typically run into them at these events, and we haven't seen any of them since like February. So it's good to be able to get them involved in this, and after the 75 minutes, have a discussion with them as well. So, but let me just point out the top guy in the center. Check it out. Look at that wardrobe that John Reed is sporting there. And he's kind of got the attitude on his face.
Yeah, he does.
I'm kind of hoping he wears that outfit next Thursday, including the hat and the attitude face, because that could be good.
So the other thing is, either your mouse is in the way or got in the way when you took the picture, or Mike Fawcett's got a tattoo on his nose. Right.
Wow, I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah. That's right. I was about to say Mike's got a new tat on his nose. It's a really unusual place to put one.
Well, if you want to be tough, you put it on your nose. And I don't know. I have nothing else for that. But anyway, so that's next week, and there's plenty of time to sign up. Just go to our LinkedIn profiles. You'll see all sorts of stuff there. But it's really cool. It's already a week. We've only actually been promoting this for less than a week. It's only really been 4 days. And 550 people are already registered. And luckily, it's virtual, so we can ask. You could have like a cast of thousands. Technically, I guess. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind, aside from the LinkedIn registrations, which is where you're going to get the best interaction capabilities, it still will be broadcast on, I think, Facebook Live, and Twitter, and via Periscope, and so on. So we'll probably have a hashtag set up for it. Well, we do already, and Brent has it. And so people will be able to respond there, and we'll be monitoring that throughout too.
Yeah, but the best place is LinkedIn. So please register, attend, and
they're the ones who get the follow up after too.
That's right.
The registrants at LinkedIn Live. Nobody else will get that.
And you want the follow-up. You need the follow-up. You cannot live without the follow-up. I guess. I don't know. All right. So with all that said, I think we're ready. And let me just take a second or two just to gird my loins, because the Rams lost to the Buffalo Bills. I'm just going to put it out there right now. It was a good game. We were trailing 28-3, and we came all the way back. We took a lead. It was 32-28. We had them, and we had them fourth down, and they had to convert or it would be over. And then one of the worst pass interference calls happened, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now I can bring in Buffalo Bob Stutz.
Would have, should have, could have. Fact is, you freaking lost. Okay.
Yeah, well,
it's going to be one of these days.
It was a good game, though.
I was actually, when it was 28-3, I was already off to doing something else because I was so mad. Then I started seeing those updates, 28-10, then 28-17. They were coming like rapid fire. And then when I saw 32-28, I was like, oh, there's no way we're going to lose this game.
Yeah.
30, started feeling
30 seconds.
And actually, most people in Buffalo would have agreed with you, actually.
Well, that and the let's say kind of questionable call that occurred at the end, that Buffalo probably should have lost the game. That was quite.
Come on.
Look, think of it this way. I'm a Giants fan, and we're playing the Rams this weekend, so I'm just expecting to go 0-4, right? So by the end of it,
it's a rebuilding year for the Giants.
Yeah, it's a rebuilding decade.
Well, that's a moment to reflect on what Alan said at 3:17. That's a good one to share.
I'm glad that you're keeping track of all this stuff.
Yeah, sad.
That's
at least again, tomorrow we'll be talking about the Yankees for sure. Definitely we'll be talking about the Yankees. They have let's say they've restored faith in 2 games. They managed to restore faith of the legions.
So, Bob, it's great to have you. Outside of the, you beating the Rams, anything else new that you might want to talk about?
Not a whole lot, actually.
Could have occurred.
We were exiting the CRM spaces. Everybody and their brother talked about, right? Which is very far from the truth, right?
Shocking.
Yes, we made an acquisition that we announced today. Emersis, which is the leader in a couple of different quadrants, and it's a great acquisition for us, and it's a great couple it with what we have with Gigya and Hybris, and it's a great combination.
So how do you see that? I mean, we were briefed on it this morning, and of course saw the acquisition literally 15 seconds after we finished the briefing, right? And I mean, the thing that interested me in particular about that was not actually the stuff that talked about for the most part. There was the fact that it could be that they had a lot of industry specific capabilities for engagement and omni-channel, right? And I mean, I was a little surprised, to be honest, that you didn't emphasize that more, but I was really impressed with it too. And I've literally never seen that anywhere else. So can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that? Because I found that fascinating.
Yeah, unlike others in the space, right? They spend a lot of time actually, focusing on different industries and building out specific types of functionality for those industries in an omni-channel world, right? Which is sort of important if you think about it, right? So it's a great acquisition. I can't talk a whole lot about it because until it closes, there is this little regulatory thing that prevents us from saying a whole lot. Plus the fact that we're in a quiet period because the quarter just finished, right? So.
Wow, we got you on the wrong day then.
I tell you, you should see the questions coming in, Bob. I mean, these folks are lining up at the gates to ask you a bunch of questions. Sorry, dudes, you heard the guys, so we can't really.
Quiet period. We're going to sit here silently and meditate.
Now,
Bob's question that I'm reading here, right? Which is, I don't think there was a failure in integrating Qualtrics in. I mean, Qualtrics runs through everything. S4 runs through our commerce, runs through C4C. I don't think there was that at all. I think, Qualtrics is a great product, and but this is very different. This is something that's very akin to CX at the end of the day, right? Omni-channel engagement is really important to what we do around identity, consent, Hybris on the commerce side. So there's a little bit of a difference there, right? This fits very well into the CX portfolio at the end of the day.
So
I want to pop up. Oh, you had a follow up because
why don't you follow up?
I was just going to pop up Jesus's question.
Yeah, go ahead. Let Jesus go on. I'll come back to mine later.
So it is no longer marketing automation versus marketing cloud, or inbound marketing versus outbound marketing. One cloud for all of these.
Yeah, I think omni-channel engagement really is, I don't think you can separate these out anymore, right? Inbound, outbound, campaign, right? It really is about highly personalized, individualized marketing, whether it's inbound, outbound. I mean, there's no difference anymore in this new world, right?
So, all right. So take that though, because one of the things that, I mean, marketing automation's always been kind of, it's almost like the bastard child of CRM, right? It's like the one that everybody knows is part of the family, but refuses to acknowledge it, right? And and it gets to things like what Jesus is suggesting, which is this kind and that kind and that kind. If you remember, when ExactTarget got acquired by Salesforce, everyone said, oh, they're acquiring email marketing. And then they found out there was part out in there. And then they found out there was a real-time interaction engine in there. And they found out there was like 15 other things that ExactTarget could do. But you know, and they were all marketing related, but ExactTarget, because just the way people look at marketing was, it's almost an entire public view was email marketing. And yet that's probably the thing they did the worst, right? So, you know, the thing is that within the SAP kind of pantheon, I mean, you've got, you know, sales and service and marketing, and you've got the customer data cloud, which is, and I think you're changing that, right? Are you changing that? I can't remember, but
yeah, it should go back to Gigia here shortly.
Oh, well, that's interesting. So I don't know if you can elaborate on it. If you can, please. If you can't, don't worry about it. I mean, that to me is what you're doing, what you guys have been doing on that level with your GDPR integrations and things like that, and how you've handled that. I thought has been, so on the data side, it's just pretty exceptional. And I actually, to me, the way you guys handled GDPR, both as a compliance thing, but also as a educational tool for, and actually building in the technology to support it, for how to actually deal with data and privacy and customer control and so on, I thought was the single best the industry had. And I still do, actually. I mean, that doesn't change. So how are you actually taking that forward, given the redoubling of the urgency around data now, but at the same time, the desire to have more and more and more and more and more?
Yeah. So to the first part of your question, man, you just went on and on and on and on. Now I'm lost.
Right.
You know, at this age, it's hard to keep up with that. Right?
That was my purpose.
You know, let me address the first part about, you know, marketing, especially marketing automation, has always been the bastard stepchild of CRM. I think the confusion has always been that when CRM was first formed, it wasn't about marketing automation. Actually, marketing was considered to be lead management, right? That's really what it was about, right? When in the early days of CRM, over time, the B2B part of marketing was included in sort of the CRM definition, but the B2C part was totally excluded at the end of the day, right? And I think now over time, what's happened is it's all come back together, right? And I think as time progresses, look, we have to stop getting rid of we really have to get rid of all these naming things, marketing automation, SFA, right? Because ultimately at the end of the day, it's really about how do you engage, right? And the processes around engagement, right? Whether that's a sales process, whether it's a service process, whether it's a marketing sort of process, right? They are all processes at the end of the day. And I think the problem is we separate it all, which then confuses customers to try to figure out how do they put it all together, right? And it really is about bringing it all together, sales, service, marketing, in seamless processes, right? Engagement doesn't happen just in marketing. Engagement happens in the SFA process. It happens in the service process. There is really no differentiation there at the end of the day.
So, but how do you actually how do you present that to the world? You know, it's like, the thing is, to your point, we actually did say that it confuses customers, but they've been hearing that same noise for 20, 25 years, you know. And
yeah, well, that's the problem with our industry, right? And look, I don't want to talk bad about analysts, but a lot of that confusion is caused by analysts at the end of the day.
Oh no,
he didn't want to say that, but you know.
Especially in a couple of sort of large firms, you know, who decide to make up their own definitions of things as they go along because they want some fucking magic quadrant that really, you know, at their whim they change the definition of. And look, to be perfectly honest, it's true. You know, if you just look over the years at the changes in the definitions of those quadrants, right? I mean, it's ridiculous at the end of the day, right? It confuses customers, it confuses the market, it confuses the industry. You know, like if you look at some of these things now, like service is a good example, right? What you see is things like channels and this arc of different things, but nowhere in there do you see contact center. Do you see, you know, inbound, outbound? Do you see help desk? Do you see, right? They change these things, right? But that's not how customers work at the end of the day. Customers, every business still runs on those simple things, right? You know, self-service, contact centers, inbound, outbound, right? I mean, it hasn't changed, but you know, if you look at the definitions in some of these magic quadrants, right? I you know, to be honest, I just gave up on them after a while because they, you know, it's hard to keep up with them, right? And then what you find is software companies change their products just so that they can match what's in those magic quadrants. And I'm not always sure that's the right thing for customers at the end of the day, right?
Ginger, you're muted. Sorry
about that. Yeah, so, you know, flower delivery right in the middle of all of this, which it's my daughter's birthday, so I had to go grab the flowers before they came.
Oh, I was getting ready to say if they were anonymously delivered, that was just me. Nice
try though. No, but one of the interesting things that I'm hearing as you're all talking about this just brings back CRM memories that really have never gone away. When back in the day, how you defined CRM really depended on who you were talking to. So if you were talking to someone from Salesforce, it was much more sales focused. If you're talking to someone from PeopleSoft, it was much more service oriented, right? And to an extent, that hasn't wholly changed. And so all of the CRM companies, it's never apples to apples, right? Well, it's maybe apples to apples if you're talking about CRM, but it's like Macintosh to Golden Delicious to Pink Lady, you know. And then but the same applies with marketing automation, right? There's, like Paul was saying, there's email, there's, you know, whatchamacallit, there's programmatic, there's more on the ad tech side. There's and they all do slightly different things. So it makes it hard to define what everything is. And then, you know, even like customer data platform, like that should just kind of be like, well, it's obvious what it is, right? But then there's companies that are an actual CDP, and there's companies that want to say they're a CDP that do something like it, but they're not really that. So it's a wonder, like, buyers can actually make any decisions because you've got all these conflicting definitions from the vendors, from the industry analysts, like, you know, the big firms that are doing the waves quadrants, like, you know, Gartner, Forrester, and it just makes it hard to have sanity. Really,
you know, you're absolutely right, and you know, my philosophy has always been build what's right for the customers to help them solve problems, and screw the analyst at the end of the day. Because, you know, look, what's important in this business is building things that solve real problems, not building things so that you can be number one in a magic quadrant and throw it up on, Twitter and everywhere else and say, hey, I'm number one in the magic. Who gives a shit, right? I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's about, are you doing the right thing for your customers? Are you building the right things to make your customers successful, right? And I think, that's the whole industry has, I think it's just gotten out of control with all that stuff, right? And it's not about magic quadrants at the end of the day, right? And I think, too much emphasis is put on the magic quadrants, and at some juncture, the industry will self-implode. I really believe that. I believe that customers will revolt. I think, people, it's like we talk about with subscription, right? The new drug is subscription. The old drug was perpetual licenses, right? Which, by the way, are no different from subscription at the end of the day. And and it's true. I mean, I really do believe that it almost hurts the industry the way some of the analysts sort of pigeonhole things and the way they change things as they go along with no rhyme or reason, right? Like one year somebody's sitting at the top of the quadrant, the next year they're sitting at the bottom of the quadrant. Now, how does that happen in 1 year, right? It's not like anything changed radically in that year for them, right? It's just that the analysts decided to redefine the quadrant, right? And so,
What do you think the analysts, when they make these changes, what are they basing those changes on? Is it from hearing talking to customers and getting feedback, or is it a new technology they think is going to be important? How do you think they make these changes?
I think some of it happens because they hear things, they make assumptions based on new technology, right? But look, I've been in the CRM business a long time, right? I mean, probably longer than most anybody. And I have to say, in all these years, it's not changed, right? I mean, look, to be perfectly honest, it's still about three things. It's about acquisition, retention, and growing the share of wallet at the end of the day. And it's all about how do you optimize the processes to do that, right? How do you build better things to help customers, relate to their customers in order to build those things, right? And it's not changed in all these years, right? It's just, functionality's gotten a little better, right? But, SFA is a commodity today, right? If I look across all the different vendors in the space, there's not a whole lot of difference, There really isn't at the end of the day. If I look at service, service is service at the end of the day. Now, some companies have a little better stuff here or there, but the reality is it's all pretty common.
And you know what? Literally by definition has to be.
It has to be.
Other than that, if I say sales to one person, it means something different to every person I say it to, then we're all doomed, right? So, look, my immediate pet peeve is actually the one that goes to what Ginger was saying, which is CDPs, which I think are ridiculously overhyped at this point. Right? And not that I think there's no validity to the idea of what they represent, but the way that people are thinking about them is just off the charts ridiculous. I remember when they were first posited, they were posited as, well, in effect, and I'm limiting it a little bit, marketing specific customer data repositories where you could take actions, right? And then the definition got broadened to all data, right? And all things, not just marketing anymore. And then all of a sudden it was basic. Look, right now, if you really look at what it's being an actual CDP is, if you want to really give it a name and give it legitimacy of any kind, it's basically where a system of record in CRM was passive, a CDP is active. And that's about the only difference, meaning you're operating in real time on the data in the CDP, where in the system of record, you went to it and then acted on it, but it was already there, right? So, and that's oversimplification, but then all vendors have decided they got to jump on the bandwagon. And the irony of that is, to me, with all CDPs, is if you actually look at what the vendors, and this is multiple vendors, offer, they actually offer, what they're offering is actually much more than a CDP is actually by definition. But because the hype is around CDPs, they're calling it a CDP anyway. And that's idiotic, right? It's basically saying, hi, we have 100%, but we're going to call it 40% because that's what people are talking about, right? And then the other 60% just sit there and do nothing. And they waste all the value that they have sitting there that they just spent probably $100 million to develop, right? They waste all of that extra value because they need to fit it into that stupid little category, right? And
yeah.
I thing drives me crazy. And again, I don't devalue the idea. I don't. I think an active.
I think you have to. The concept of CDP is not new by any stretch of the imagination. What has changed around the concept of a CDP, and call it what you want, operational data store, real-time warehouse, right? You can call it all sorts of things at the end of the day. But what has changed around, and it's not so much CDP, but it's the whole concept of that we live in a real world, right? Customers don't live in a static CRM system, right? CRM systems are very static in nature, right? If you think about a contact doesn't get updated unless somebody goes in and actually updates the damn thing at the end of the day, right? How many times do companies go to contact somebody and realize that person left the company 2 years ago, right? It happens all the time, right? Because CRM systems are very static in nature, right? They are manual. They're not updated automatically. You have to manually go in and update that stuff, right? And that's why you always hear companies pounding on salespeople to update, right? Because if you don't update, then the data is not current. The concept of a CDP in theory is not bad. The problem is that, you had all these people who decided they were going to build CDPs, and actually they didn't build it. What they did is they took rehash tag management systems and now called them CDPs, right? But the reality is, if you can take an online profile and marry it with the static profile in the first party CRM and bring it together, right? So that you have a living, breathing profile. And then you marry that with consent and you marry it up with identity, right? There is a lot of merit to that. I actually do believe, I don't like the term CDP. I actually do hate that term. It's another thing that got coined, and here it is, and that's what it is, and that's what it'll stay until somebody comes up with some other naming convention for it, right? But the reality is, I do believe the future of CRM applications will be centered around the concept of a living, breathing, intelligent data hub. It will no longer be focused on what I call static CRM databases, right? It really has to be around living, breathing, real-time data, right? And I think that's the purpose at the end of the day, right? Is to have that real living profile that is, real time, right? Not something that sits there in static. However, getting there, CDPs have become what I call, and somebody actually said it's sort of like the new 360-degree customer view. Right. It's
you know who said that, right?
I know. That's right.
I want to know.
Oh, it was Esteban.
What it is too. Yeah.
It was Esteban Ginger.
Yeah. And and the problem with that is if it may go the same way that the 360 went, right, which was nowhere at the end of the day, right? When you talk to customers are still seeking the holy grail of the 360-degree, right? Which, I'm sorry, in all the years I've been in this industry, I've never seen a single customer ever achieve it. It's hard. It's really hard at the end of the day, right? What it means in order to do that is companies have to tear down the silos between the different organizations. And that is a very hard thing to do. Even in a marketing organization, to get to that 360, to take marketing data, blend it with first-party CRM data, with browsing history data, you really have to tear down the silos in a company to make that happen. And it's hard. It is really hard for companies to think differently, right? Some companies have started, right? So they talk more about experience, right? Having customer experience as a sort of a category, right? You see companies that now have, customer experience officers, right? And there's merit to that, right? Because it is about the experience at the end of the day. And what's the data that you need in order to really provide a great experience to a consumer or a customer, right? But it does mean breaking down the silos in organizations, right? I mean, look, in most companies, service is split from sales, which is split from marketing, and which is split from online versus offline, right? You have all these silos inside of a company. And so to break those down and bring it together means companies have to think differently. And we talk about digital transfer. Go ahead.
Isn't part of the point of having a CDP to help bridge the silos and bring and by the way, I think Intelligent Data Hub should be the name. Like that. I love that, Bob. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's not a bad name. I just, that also has a negative connotation because it's been tried a few times, but it is a better explanation. But it is, the CDP is really, I think, the way to try and make that happen. It's just, I don't think that even customers who I have seen who have implemented CDPs struggle with who's the user of the CDP at the end of the day, right? Whose job is it, right, to manage that at the end of the day, right? Because, it's great to build something and have it, but then you have to think about who's the end user at the end of the day. Who's the person that really has to, it's their job to go in and manage that? The same way we talk about journeys and journey orchestration, right? Whose job is it to actually go in and actually do that orchestration and move things around? You go to most companies and they have no clue who's going to do it at the end of the day. That's the problem.
Well, it should be someone in marketing. I mean, a lot of this information is for campaigns, right? So it makes sense that someone in marketing is, even if someone in another department is then using that information, maybe it's customer experience team, it usually is connected with something related to marketing. And especially if it's real-time personalization on site, for example, that's usually marketing or marketing and like someone working on user experience on the site or merchandising or something like that are connected.
Yeah, you're right. But the problem is getting companies to actually understand that and reorganize themselves around those things, right? It's the same way that, look, even here we are, God knows how many decades later, and how many sales departments and marketing departments actually talk to each other at the end of the day.
Well, that's a different issue, and also something that, weirdly enough, some companies are trying to resolve. Although they're doing it more around ultimately collaborative business objectives, outcomes that they want. But the other side, though, kind of goes to the customer 360 thing too. Ultimately, if you're looking at it realistically, it's a 360-degree view of the customer. No one in their right mind really believes that that's actually possible, because it would be taken to, there isn't enough data in the universe on a single customer for that to be real, right? And not only that single, even if there was, it would be enough data for about 3 seconds of that individual's actual life, right? So it's not possible. So ultimately, realistically, you're looking for kind of, and I'm using the term super broadly, deliberately, a well-rounded view of a customer. And that's really all we're talking about, really. Meaning we have enough data to make some decisions on how we want to treat that individual relative to all the other individuals we have to think about. And that could be, look, one of the things about engagement that always struck me funny is you don't have to actually have a one-to-one engagement with the actual individual. The customer has to feel as if they're being valued by you. That's it. And that's a different thing. And that means like, okay, as a customer, I'm getting enough, there's enough knowledge about me to give me choices that are meaningful to me. And I'm going to make some of those choices. And it's not just choices of things I can buy. It's just ways you interact with me, things I do with you, whatever. But it's events, it's whatever. But ultimately, give me enough choices to make me feel like you know enough about me so that I can make an intelligent choice on how I want to continue to deal with you. And that's all you have to do. And that's still a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot simpler than what we always talk. But we do talk about holy grails that are impossible to reach instead of what's actually reasonable.
You're right. But it's about what is really 360, right? At the end of the day, right? We live our lives in moments, right? Every moment is different, right? Events are different, right? That 360 has to be geared around a moment, right? A moment in time when I'm interacting with, whether it's a brand, whether it's, with my family, with my children, everything is done in moments, right? And if you think about the moment where you interact, you're buying a product, right? That 360 of when I'm buying that product is going to be very different from the 360 when I'm calling a call center to talk about something else, right? Exactly. We do live in moments, right? And it's not about some big, massive 360-degree profile at the end of the day. It's really about having the right data at that moment, right? To solve the situation and know enough about your consumer, your customer, to really make them understand that you do know them, you do understand what they're going through. It's as simple as
they have to feel it. And they just have to feel that way too. It's not like they have to think it profoundly. They just have to feel that way. Right. And ultimately it's pretty simple, really. They're gonna either get that or they're not. And that means they're either going to continue to work with you or they're not.
That's right.
So I just want to go back to the 360 view for a second. Some people, because of the reality of 360, call it having a golden record, which is, it was a long ago name from sales that has kind of shifted over to just the best possible data that you could have at that moment. And relating to what Bob was just saying about things happening in the moment and being there to react to your customers in that moment of truth for them, is sometimes knowing not just what's happening at that moment, but what happened just before. And that's one reason it's important to have that data connection.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about a moment. I want to talk about a moment a week from now. And when you and your executive buddies are joining us for our very first executive roundtable. So we're going to have 5 of you high-powered executive types from these high-powered companies.
Yeah, you big shots.
Yeah, you big shots. And so
just a simple country boy
from Buffalo. But besides that,
from Buffalo factories.
So if you were us, guys that have the 5 of you, on with us, what should we ask you guys? Because you guys are, we're having fun with this, but in certain regard, you are kind of masters of the CRM universe. You got the market share that everybody else would like, and you guys are at the senior levels.
I don't want
these
it.
companies. Well,
I don't want their market share.
So, what should we ask you that you think is of utmost importance to the industry today?
So one is I would set some ground rules with these people first and foremost, right? Which is the ground rule I would set is I don't want to hear your company bullshit. I don't want to hear the sales pitch, right? Because unfortunately, that's what happens a lot of the time, right?
Not with us. Never does.
No, see, the one thing we did pick up from the debate is that we got the mute that we can push on people if we start hearing any of that kind of stuff. I don't think we're gonna have to use it, but just
every single person there, right?
Yeah, like some of them used to work for me I think the key is like it's a great I was talking to Suresh just yesterday, and I think it's a great group of people. Mm-hmm. People that come from this sort of business at all different perspectives, right? And I think the key is really to ask them, like, where do they see it going, right? Where do they see the world of applications going at the end of the day, right? Look, it's clear work is changing, how people work, more so than we've ever seen, right? How is this whole industry going to adapt to that at the end of the day, right? And look, not to, I worry every day because I know that my time's coming to an end sooner or later. I hear a set of islands calling, pretty often nowadays.
Maldives.
And I do worry that I'm not sure. Sometimes I worry that the next generation of leaders in this space don't really grasp what this space is all about at the end of the day. And I do worry about that, right? Because, I think that, it's an important critical space, right? And it's never going to go away no matter what people think, right? But I think the way things are done will change radically over the next couple of years, and how applications interact and the technology that is now there. There has to be a major overhaul of every one of these systems where these people come from, the companies that they're with, right? And I think they know it, right? But I think the thing is look, I talk openly about it because, I don't give a shit, right? I've gotten to a point where, look, I'm not here to appease anybody. I do what's right for this industry and what's right for customers. And to me, that's the most important thing at the end of the day. And I think, I worry about what's happening in the industry and are we building things just to make a point and say, oh, geez, I did this now. And now we're gonna, I built this application to do this. And, and it's like, it's building little point stuff, but not really focusing on solving the hard problems in this space, right? Because those problems still exist, by the way, right? They're not solved by no stretch of the imagination, right? Just look at service. Service is still a disaster, right? How many companies do you know that actually do service right? I don't know many, I have such headaches every time I have to deal with a mobile cell phone provider, right? By the time I get off the phone, I all I want to do is go drink a bottle of wine. Right?
Oh, well, hey, I've got one for you right there. If you really want it. And I'll include the chocolates too. Oh, I got the wrong thing on there, but yeah, we got it for you, man. We got it.
We got you covered.
We got
gold bellies, not gold bellies.
But I think those are the types of things you have to ask them. What's the future of this business, right? Can you take a 20-year-old platform and continue to keep building and pushing the same old stuff to customers, right? I think, the problem with this space is it doesn't change enough, and it doesn't change fast enough at the end of the day. If you think about some industries, they radically have to change constantly because of, the models are changing, right? If you look at things like commerce, right? E-commerce has to change radically all the time, right? It went from websites to social to, you can see it's POS everywhere nowadays, right? Radical changes in that space. And in the CRM space, I think, it's just too slow to change. And I think, you have a lot of smart people on the call who, I would ask them, what are you going to do to change this industry, to change this space? How are you going to make it different at the end of the day, right? And I think that would be one of the things that I would ask some of those people, like really smart people, Bill Patterson, smart guy, Rob. I've known Rob forever, right? Great guy, smart guy, right? There's a guy in Rob who had a concept, right? Who really, I actually was a firm believer that it would take off, but it didn't take off, right? The whole community thing really, with lithium, never really took off, right? But if you think about the concept, it was a great concept, great idea, right? But it never really took off, right? And if you, and I think Salesforce sort of picked it up and tried to drive it further, but it's never really taken off. And that's why I always wonder, like, how are you going to change this industry, right? What are you going to do differently in the future, right?
Yeah, actually, what would be a good next roundtable would be identify 5 of the next gen leaders in this world and have them on and see what they think. I don't know who they are. We'd have to literally figure it out and start talking about it. And as far as the community thing goes, just to your point, it didn't take off as a market, but it did take off as a way of communicating, right? And people do use them everywhere. The problem what Rob's actual strength was at Lithium was, because I was very involved with them since probably the year 2. And what they had built was this enterprise grade product. And it was right from the beginning, it was enterprise grade. But their company was not ready to go to enterprise people at all. Literally not at all. It was like, hi, we have this amazing enterprise grade product. Come over to our office in Emeryville and watch us play foosball in the hallway, right? And, you're not going to convince a 50-year-old or even a 40-year-old executive to buy you if people are playing foosball in the hallway. So what Rob did was he took them, and he did a good job of this. He took them to the level of being able to compete at an actual, and he made them into an enterprise company. And then the problem, I honestly think Lithium was easily the market leader. Jive was more collaboration and internal. And then when they went outside with JiveX, it didn't really grab. But Vista bought them. I think that was the actual big problem and killed whatever market there was. It never, to your point, the market as a place where you could sell things, right, never took off at the level one would expect. The concept of using communities, though, because a lot of the community platforms are fairly simple to implement, like, the back end of, say, WordPress or something like that. They're pretty easy going and they do the job, really. They allow, when we want to get big enterprise level, like HP had 7 communities for lithium base. But Vista just did what Vista always does, which is they stripped the crap out of the company and destroyed it. And now it's Khoros.
But if you think about communities, right, today, right, with the technology that exists today, right, when lithium was around, you didn't have the technology that you actually
not at that
have
level
today, right?
No. Nope.
But if you think about the technology that exists today, why isn't communities becoming bigger, right? Why aren't communities, with all the machine learning and automation, right? Why isn't it becoming bigger, right? You don't see it.
Well, so I have a thought on that, which is the place that I see communities most often is when a company asks their customers to join the community for customer feedback, for example, and whatever that might be, maybe it's customer experience, or they want to find out for marketing what advertising people like, or product, thoughts about product, or what have you. There's a B2B company that sells food to institutions. They have a B2B community of chefs that work at these institutions that is wildly successful. I think a lot of the other communities don't work basically because of social media. Like, why would I join Macy's customer community when I can go talk about Macy's on Facebook or whatever, right? So I think it's becoming a niche. It's really useful for what it's useful for, but will it have a broad appeal when everyone is already communing somewhere else?
Well, and to your point, communities of interest, those are communities of interest that you're describing, and they are like the chef's one, and those have always been successful. Communities of practice have kind of fallen off the wayside.
Yeah, like service, right? That was the big thing, right? Communities around service, and just never took off, right? I actually hate communities for service, right? My worst one is Apple, right? You ever try to solve a technical problem with Apple, right? You're better off going out on the freaking internet to find it from somebody else than you are trying to get Apple to solve it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And you're nailing that. That's a huge problem.
I mean, yeah, YouTube has become in a lot of cases the first place I go to try to solve stuff, because you can't get it from the actual product manufacturers in a lot of instances.
No, you can't. Like you go out and you have totally sold yourself on the concept of Apple, and then you go and buy a beautiful brand new 42-inch freaking monitor that just hums. And then you realize you can't control the sound from your Apple machine. Right? I mean, and then you find out you have to go out on the web and find, some techie
Reddit
forum somewhere where some guy's talking about, some little piece of software that you need to download and put on your machine in order to make this work. Right?
Thank God for search.
Seriously, But I mean, back to your original question, I do think, where is this whole industry going at the end of the day, right? Will it even be around in 10 years, right?
That's a big theme.
Yeah, well, he'll be on his island by then, so will you really care, Bob? He'll be on the island watching the Bills.
No, Maldives does not have Bills games.
That's right, no Bills games.
There won't be any Bills games.
Well, hey, this has been great. It's actually been a great warm-up. Yes, a great warm-up. Now, if we could get all of the 5 of you, just speaking freely, dropping F-bombs whenever you want to, I'm all for that. I think it'll be great. It'll be a real discussion.
It'll be fun.
Awesome.
And to your point, we do promise you there will be no competitive bullshit.
We're not doing that, man.
That's not happening.
And there's some folks, leaving comments and stuff about fist fight, or not fist fights, but some kind of, food fight or something. We're not trying to do that. We're just trying to have a conversation, man. This
is a conversation among people being friends here, but at the same time, people who actually have had a huge impact on driving where the industry does go. And so,
and look, some really bright young people in the industry,
that's the next one. That's a good idea for the next roundtable, is to identify some of those people. So be prepared. We're going to come to all of you guys to ask you about who you think might be those people. They don't have to be that well known yet.
I think the only thing that you're missing from the roundtable, if I can just add a little something there, is you got all the big players, right? The Microsofts of the world, the SAPs, the Salesforces, Adobe. But what you're missing is the players like Sridhar from
Zoho.
Zoho, and
we're not missing them. That wasn't
we got them. I literally just did a live stream with him, and that guy has such interesting and unique perspectives on everything.
I love him. I love his perspectives. He's an amazing guy, right? I mean, I think some of those companies that take a whole different philosophy around this industry, right? Yeah. They're not in it for the money. They're not greedy. They just want to do the right thing for customers. Mm-hmm. I think
for their employees
too. And for their employees, right? Yeah. And they come at it from a very different perspective. And I have nothing but admiration for Sridhar and what those guys have done in Zoho, right?
It will happen. It will happen. Don't worry. I mean, this is the first roundtable, not the only roundtable. And it's just, ultimately you can't, even though somehow we've managed to squeeze a total of 19 people into this roundtable, you really can't have more than 5, right? So,
I still don't know how it's going to be effective with so many people.
Well, because 5 of you are going to go, and then let's say this: all you have to worry about is communicating with all your buddies there, and the rest of it we'll handle. Don't get nervous.
We'll be switching people in and out. Right. Yeah, it's not going to be 19 people on the screen.
Nervous is not something that ever comes into play with me.
Oh no, not at all.
So on that note, we are definitely looking forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, I can't wait.
The other 4 folks, and then of course the cast of characters, which are the follow-up after show. It'll be fun. And people, once again, you can go to LinkedIn and register to attend. I think we're well over 550 now, but we want more people. We got it's virtual. We can have as many.
666.
No, we need to get past 666.
we need literally, I know how to do it. At 665, we get Siamese twins to register.
Good Lord.
That gets us to 667. Immediately with one registration.
And on that note, on behalf of Buffalo Bob, I am Brent Leary.
I am Paul Greenberg.
And I'm Ginger Conlon.
We are the CRM Players, and we will see you next week for the big event. But if you want to talk sports, we'll see you tomorrow for Excuse the Intrusion. See you.